Good evening, dear friends. Today, like every day, we wake up empty and scared. Don't go to your study and begin reading. Take down a musical instrument. Let the beauty we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. Good evening. My name is Paul Norton. Some of you already know me, but many not. I should probably just give you that option there to get a little bit of my sort of quick bio on this. I am a person who has been doing daily meditation for 32 and a half years, and I've been teaching for over 25. And it is always my great pleasure to be able to come and share what I have. I will say that I have no books. I haven't written any books. I have no endowment from a university or any sort of thing. I do this kind of all on my own. That being said, I have no original ideas. I have no original ideas. All of the ideas I have been given to me by teachers. And I am just happy to kind of give them to you. I'm hoping that this is more of a sharing than a lecture. I'm hoping that we can have perhaps a dialogue about these wonderful issues rather than I'm going to give you didactic information. I have a little background in medicine. I was a pediatrician for over 30 years, and I have a real love for that particular part of that. I was born and raised Roman Catholic. I am now a Zen Buddhist. Most Zen Buddhists in America started out with something else, and have really very much enjoyed this. So the first thing I'd like you to do, and we'll talk a little bit more about how the retreat will unfold, is to greet each other. What if we gave a weekend retreat and no one showed up? That'd be kind of sad, wouldn't it? And so it's not just me or the Christine Center, it's the presence of all of you kind of participating in this that is really so quite wonderful. It's really the lifeblood of all of this. So let's just take a few minutes, just look the person around you, say thank you for being here, do a little bow, whatever you like. So yes. Thank you deeply for being here. Very wonderful. Wonderful to see you. Yes. So nice. Yes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Thanks for making it. Thank you. Thank you. So there's a lot going on in this retreat. The first thing you might notice on the schedule is that I put a starting time, but not an ending time. And I'm not sure when any of these sessions will end. Probably no longer than 2 hours, but I don't want to put restrictions on that. So more like an hour and a half. I want to make it clear, however, that you need to be comfortable. 10 hours of doing stuff is a lot of stuff, and I have no offense if you kind of miss a session, come back to another one, leave in the middle. Every session has a handout that is sort of reflective of what we're talking about in the individual session. And you don't get the handout till we're done. And those of you who are on Zoom, You will get this at about 9 o'clock tonight or 2 hours after this all starts as a document. So that's kind of the first thing with that. And so, yes, stretch out, do this retreat, make it whatever you wish to make it. There's a couple of other little things on the schedule that are kind of optional, but might be important to you. Tomorrow morning, we will be and Sunday morning, we'll have meditation in the center here in this hall at 7 a.m. And there'll be some instruction with that. You can sleep in, you can figure out what you're going to want to do with that, but that will be kind of an offering. So also, before I get going with how this is, I don't know most of you, which is really always fun to me. It's always fun to have new people. So I want to get an idea about what the room is like. So the first question I have is, how many of you are regular meditators? Pretty good. How many people have never done meditation? Everybody's done some. All right. How many people are in a helping profession, whether that's healthcare, mental health, or something along those lines? Terrific. How many people are teachers? Wonderful. Are there any people here who are clergy or teach religious education? Clergy or teach religious education? All right. So thank you. I will pause during some of the presentation to ask questions. I don't want to go all the way through to the end of the session and then ask for questions. I want people to be able to come up with whatever questions. And once again, we'll have a dialogue. That's also the kind of goal on their schedule of something called afternoon tea, which is optional at 4 tomorrow afternoon. That's just a session. We're going to get together in the dining room, have cookies and tea. I'll probably have coffee, but something along those lines, and just a chance to open up and have discussion. And also in those kinds of sessions, people might bring things forward and see how this is. I will say that this whole thing is really evolving for me. I hope to do this on a regular basis at the Christine Center. Maybe yearly, we'll see how it goes. But I would say dollars to donuts that it's not going to look the same 3 years from now that it does right now. This is really an amazing time to be alive. It's really amazing to see this really rich Eastern traditions, Western traditions, deep spiritual traditions coming alive with modern science, coming together in really, in a lot of ways, surprising agreement. And really a very, very much, and it thrills me to do this. I get really kind of nerdy, and I hardly ever get on the internet for anything, but I'll cruise things and say, wow, they're finding out this. And I'll share some of that with you. I'm also going to do a couple of things. All of the sessions will have practices associated with them. So you'll have an individual meditation practice to take with at the end of this session. There's also resources. So I will give you mostly books that other people have been writing, people who are way more organized than I am about this and really wiser, quite frankly. And so, really take a look at that. The other thing I wanted to mention are Dharma doors. What are those? There is a phrase in my Zen Buddhist tradition that there are 84,000 Dharma doors, 84,000 ways to find enlightenment, peace of mind, contentment, nirvana, whatever it is, heaven on earth. And they're all different for everybody. So we are really very much of the idea that there's no real kind of cookie cutter way to do these practices. You're all different people. You all have different things. So as an example, one of the first things I do when I start teaching classes is I do eating meditation, which is, we could talk about if you want, but I'm just going to let it go as just basically eating and doing nothing but that without getting into a lot of description. And then people come back the next week and we all check in. And there's always, this is inevitable. Somebody comes along and says, oh, slowing down to eat my food was just like, oh, I tasted all that oatmeal I tasted was just terrific. And I can't believe that I've been missing all this and everything else. And then the next person says, I don't get it. This just didn't work for me. And that's kind of how it is. I am of the absolute belief, and again, this is something that I can't really check, that everybody has practices that they can help themselves become more spiritual and in that way become more aware in whatever tradition you kind of do that with. I don't know what that is for you. I can't, and I quite frankly don't have the time to sort of sit down and do that with you, but you can find it yourself. And hopefully one or maybe some of the opportunities that happen here are things that you might to do. But once again, if you decide that one of the ways that you wish to kind of be in contact and to explore the way that life is to get out and walk on these beautiful grounds, if you can sort of dodge the rain or the snow that might be coming, that's a wonderful thing too. If you want to go to the art hut, that's a wonderful thing too. If you wish to listen to music, all of it is good. I had an interesting discussion a couple of years ago after somebody who took my class and quite frankly was doing very well and got a lot out of it. And he asked me a question. I gave him an answer, and I'm still not sure that my answer is correct, but I will tell you what that was. He said, you know, we learn about all of these things. You know, we learn about, you know, the Four Noble Truths, and we learn about, you know, how to breathe, and we learn about, you know, what it means to, you know, turn towards your afflictions, et cetera, et cetera. But we learn all this stuff. But if we just kind of practiced and didn't have to learn anything, and we never learned anything, would it work? And I thought about it, and I will tell you that my sort of prejudicial way of looking at it right now is, yeah, I think it would. I think it would. I don't know, because that's a pretty hard experiment to do, but I do think that it would. And so I'm saying is, practice is more important than knowledge. In fact, many people would feel that knowledge can be an obstacle to making yourself to practicing well. That being said, we're all curious people, right? That's part of humanity, is to be curious. We all want to know things. We all have this idea about what this is all going on. And I find that there are probably very few people that could do what my friend was proposing. As a matter of fact, I haven't found anybody yet. I have certainly run across many people who have been successful, not just on the Buddhist path, but people who are Christians doing centering prayer. I know a few people who have done Sufi things that have just been really terrific, lots of stuff. That almost always there has to be this kind of overall structure with it. But the practice is really important. So what I really hope happens by sharing this knowledge is that it inspires you to practice. Inspires you to practice. If it doesn't inspire you to practice, well, maybe next time. So, but really it's the idea of kind of throwing ourselves into this. It is really an amazing journey to be a human being, but it's really an amazing journey to be a human being in the 21st century with all of this really old wisdom and all of this modern stuff. Really kind of gets me going. So the goals of the course are probably just what I kind of outlined, which is basically to just be here in whatever way you can. And again, I'm asking you to dialogue with me if you can, if there's anything that might be coming up. Let's see where this all began, where the kind of problem is. A history of Homo sapiens from about roughly 250,000 BCE, these are all real rough things because people, to 15,000 BCE. There were a lot of hominid species, things that you would call people, in various ways for maybe 1 million to 2 million years ago. But roughly 250,000 years ago, some people say later, some people say earlier, this species that we presently hold called Homo sapiens arose. It arose on the savannas of Africa, and it had some really interesting things going along with it. The first was that even though we were kind of really poor at a lot of the physical skills, such as weren't as strong as a lot of other animals, weren't as fast as a lot of other animals, didn't have a better eyesight or hearing, we actually ended up with a situation where we had wisdom and collection. So the hunter-gatherer societies, see that? Whoops, I guess I did want to go. The hunter-gatherer societies were no more than 150. There's a thing called Dunbar's number, which says how much of a species gets together before it has to split off. It's like 39 for chimpanzees. Don't ask me why it's 39, not 40, but anyway. You get to the 40th chimpanzee, you have to go. Yes, a question. Yeah, I did that on, yeah, sorry. So the human hunter-gatherer groups, even nowadays, so there are hunter-gatherer groups that still exist in relatively remote places in the world. They're still doing the kind of things that our ancestors did. And they never seem to be more than 150 people. When it gets to be more than 150 people, it has to break off into two groups. Actually, they were mostly less than that. And they lived they were nomadic. They tended to go from place to place. They developed a great deal of wisdom with nature if they had to. And they were very, very vigilant. They had to always, that was their thing. Always watching, always watching, always. And they're, kind of covering each other's back. So the community of human beings on these small scales was what kept them all going. When you were a hunter-gatherer 50 or 100,000 years ago, you actually had a situation where you knew everybody in your tribe and you were very loyal to your tribe. And this is hardwired into our nervous system, not any different than what our eyesight is or how tall we are. This is really kind of what we are. We are connected to our particular tribe and did very well with that. Over the years, things happen. There's a feeling, and don't ask me why they know this, because I didn't really get a great answer when I was kind of thinking about this. About 100,000 years ago, language became really important. Until then, there was communication with grunting and signs and things like that, but nothing specific like language. And 70,000 years ago, after having spent most of their time in the savanna of Africa, humanity, Homo sapiens, broke out and started traveling the world. And by 15,000, so in 55,000 years, it was essentially everywhere, including Polynesia, North and South America, everything, and adapted to the cold northern climes of say, Northern Europe, as well as the kind of hot areas in jungles, or even being able to adjust to being more seafaring like you see in places like Polynesia. It was really kind of an amazing thing that all of that happened. And then somebody came up with a great idea, which was agriculture. Whoops, I'm going the wrong way. So any questions so far about this? This is our heritage, the hunter-gatherers. beautiful, beautiful little societies. About 15,000 years ago, Homo sapiens was kind of quote unquote everywhere on the planet. But the best estimations that paleontologists and anthropologists have is that the total population of humans at that time was about 6 million people, or about the state of Wisconsin. So you take the state of Wisconsin and spread those people all over the world. That's kind of how it was. So there weren't a lot of people in density, but they were kind of all over the situation. And as people evolved, they said, why do we need to keep wandering around? Why do we have to keep gathering? Maybe we can kind of do agriculture. Good idea. And it worked. Actually, if we look back in history, there are signs that people kind of tried to do this several times before it became mostly successful in Mesopotamia at that particular time. But it really did kind of was one of those things that had fits and starts with it. And with agriculture, instead of gathering everything all over the place and looking for things, you could have your stuff right here, and you could have domestic animals. You can have the grains and the animals that you need to eat. That was just terrific. And but the problem was this big problem. In order for this to work, it would almost always require more than 150 people. It was hard for 150 people to kind of just do agriculture and stay at one place. Other people, for example, might just come and poach on their stuff. So we developed city-states and all that sort of thing. Civilization formed because we decided to have agriculture. Instead of having these little numbers of 150 people, there were now thousands, and they started cropping up all over the place. There is a lot of evidence that first several thousand years that this happened, things didn't go well. In other words, when we look at human remains from those times, they weren't very healthy. They didn't take into advantage that being together in a society, more diseases, you get dependent on a particular crop or a particular animal, and a blight goes through or a famine, you're in trouble. So all of those sorts of things. But it did slowly get to be the evolution that has part of what our heritage is. And city-states led to things like, started first with language, but then there was literature. People told stories. The ideas of commerce, trading with other people who were that way. Warfare, unfortunately, became quite good. People became, quote unquote, quite good at that. And the other interesting little thing, maybe even before civilization, but there is that spirituality was always there. Was always there. In every society that we know of, whether it's the small hunter-gatherer groups or whether it's the larger groups, there is a spiritual thread that goes underneath that. There may be creation myths, there may be things trying to explain, gods and goddesses. There may be other kinds of relations going on, but we know even before agriculture came that 30,000, 40,000 years ago, some of those burials seem to be very ritualized. They seem like they were doing something in relationship to that. So spirituality is really a very strong part of what we do. The thing that's happened, though, the thing that I wanted to say about spirituality is it's not clear whether the spirituality is there because there's an underlying purpose to it. In other words, is there a person or a force or something that wants us to be able to learn something, to know something, to connect with, to be creative with something? that exists, whether you want to call it a Godhead or a universal force or whatever? Or is spirituality just an acceptation? That's a funny word, and it was created by Jay Gould, a paleontologist. An acceptation is something that is a change in what's going on that actually turns out to be not the intended purpose for it. So the most famous acceptation people talk about is dinosaurs getting feathers. So dinosaurs got feathers, and then the smaller dinosaurs survived the big crash 65 million years ago of the asteroid that hit. And now we have birds. And birds use feathers, obviously, to fly. They need to get around. But the original thing that the reptiles were using the feathers for was for heat transfer and to basically make themselves lighter rather than to fly. But there it was. We, as human beings, have had to learn to cooperate and get together and be as one, whether it is a small tribe, like a hunter-gatherer, or a large city-state, or, as we see now, the universe, the whole of humanity trying to come together. Was spirituality just an outcropping of that natural thing that we know is written in our DNA to cooperate? We are great cooperators with each other, but we are only cooperators with people we feel we should cooperate with. And here's the real problem. The problem here is that we all learned the idea, our DNA, our wiring is such that yes, we can cooperate with our tribe very, very well. But outside of our tribe, we have difficulty. And even in some of those spirituality problems that happened. So the Inquisition happened, for example, because, if you weren't, and actually the idea of taking over the New World happened, because after all, Christians were special people, that kind of thing. The Canaanites in the Bible, the Jews went to the promised land, but there was a whole bunch of people already living there. They were Canaanites. And they said, too bad, God says this is our place, and kicked them out. This is the kind of thing that's kind of happened under the rubric of spirituality. So there's been a lot of difficulties with that. All the way through, however, there have been a number of people that have decided that the idea of spirituality goes way beyond our individual tribe, but to everybody. Love thy neighbor as thyself, right? That kind of a thing, that this idea that to be tribal and provincial is probably the biggest thing that's holding us all back forever, for the longest time. Certainly, the religious wars, but not even just religious wars, other kinds of things happening, people in our tribe. And my goodness, I don't think this has necessarily gotten a whole lot better. In many ways, one of the things that was not predicted from your hunter-gatherer things was social media. I wonder if those guys ever had social media. Although the interesting thing, just a curiosity, is sidebar. When you look at modern hunter-gatherer societies and their conversations, 40% of it is gossip. 40% is, that guy's not pulling his load. What's going on with that person? That kind of a thing. So even way back when, there's always been that kind of thing that's going on with that. And we need hopefully to find a way to kind of get beyond that. We need to break out of our hunter-gatherer society, way more than 150 people in that crowd, and get us through the idea of defending the self, or the extension of ourself, our tribe, and the other. And we need to kind of go with the idea that all humanity is a beehive. We talked about that. That hopefully this is a sense of cooperation. I saw this picture. I like to think that the people in the white suits and the black suits and the yellow suits and the red suits were all different people, all different sorts of, I don't know, religions or nationalities, and they've got to come together to kind of do this sort of thing. This is what our goal is right now, or we're going to crash and burn. There's a famous naturalist by the name of E.O. Wilson, and he has made this really wonderful statement that humanity, and he kind of died right around the turn of this particular century, but he said that humanity has become more like a beehive than a wolf pack. You know, wolf pack small. The beehive, very large, many, many people, many, many things. That the true way for humanity to move forward is to see everybody as part of your tribe. Everybody, even those people you disagree with, even that person that says, oh my gosh, how could they be thinking that? This is kind of our goal. This is how we are going. And especially in a time of the time when there's so much friction and things, but everybody is connected with this great technology that happens. You know, about maybe a little bit more than 100 years ago, there was a famous expedition to Antarctica called the Stapleton Expedition. Now, people heard about this. They screwed up. They got caught in kind of the ice coming at the end of their kind of winter, and their boats got crushed and they were stranded in Antarctica. This was like, I think 1917, 1918, something like that. And no one knew they were there. No one knew they were there. I mean, you know, this is not that long ago, just barely over 100 years ago. And eventually somebody decided to make a real long journey across the Antarctica to a little port that they knew, and they got saved, and it became very famous, obviously. That was somebody, and this was 20 years ago, so I don't know exactly what's happening with that now, is this idea that somebody was in a boat out on the Indian Ocean in India, and they were in trouble. Storm came up. They were in really big trouble. They were going to lose their boat and their lives. And they tried to get the Indian Coast Guard on their radio and couldn't find them. So they called their friends in London and said, hey, we're on. And the London people called the Indian Coast Guard. I mean, this is the huge difference that's going on with that. Never before have we had this terrific potential to unite us all together, but we need to kind of work at it. We need to kind of practice with that. The tribalism is taking us apart. Now, even in, you know, Jesus's time and the Buddha's time and Muhammad and all these great teachers, they all knew this. They all knew this. They, you know, absolutely had that kind of a thing, but it was always the other people that kind of stepped in. I think that, you know, Jesus Christ would have been like horrified to hear about crusades and the Inquisition. Certainly the Buddha would not have been very happy about what's going on in Myanmar and Sri Lanka. So all of these kinds of things that are going on were not really the way that the great teachers had that planned for them. We have the opportunity. This is what we can do with it. And as we're going to kind of look at closer, this is neuroscience. See, the script for how do I connect with everybody, that software has already been written. If I can connect to the other person in my tribe, then I can connect to people outside of my tribe. It's merely a process of being able to extend from one provincial little way of looking at things to a larger picture. And quite frankly, since we've already become a beehive, we should start acting like one. Otherwise, things will kind of go awry. So any questions or comments about any of that? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Good question. So the question was, given in the primitive tribes, I'm repeating the question mostly for the people on Zoom who didn't hear you. How do you determine the difference between spirituality and superstition? It's really hard to know, isn't it? Because so much of what might be considered to be superstitious might actually be things that pull people together. So if there was, for example, human sacrifice, and that there are people who in history, the Mayan ball players, for example, they enjoyed or they strived to be human sacrifices so that they could pull things together. There's two parts to what you're kind of talking about. The first part is beliefs. And I will tell you that beliefs are very fluid. And we're going to talk quite a bit about this tomorrow night, about how we can get caught in beliefs that there is, this entity or this way of being and be very sure about it. And we can critique that and say, well, they just didn't know better or whatever. And that's and they were being silly and destructive versus process. And any process that pulls people together is something that has the potential to unite their tribe and their planet. Would I think that human sacrifice would necessarily be a great idea now? Of course not. But it probably did do something like that. And many things that have gone on in history that seemed to be really tremendous difficulties have actually been united. We are here tonight. You are listening to me because of the Vietnam War. Let me explain that. In 1926, a young man was born who became Thich Nhat Hanh. My teacher, several of others in the room have used him as a teacher. And he basically opened up my eyes to all of this sort of stuff. And I'm bringing this to you. But with the Vietnam War, he doesn't come to the West and he doesn't teach me. He doesn't teach anybody. He stays in Vietnam. He clearly becomes a very good Vietnamese teacher, but his sort of global reach doesn't happen. And yet the Vietnam War was a terrible thing. Who would want to say, gee, if you could go back in history and you could get rid of the Vietnam War, would you? Most of us would say, well, yeah, lots of people died unnecessarily, and it wasn't that sort of thing. So many times in history where things have happened, we kind of pull things together. Horrible, horrible tragedy right now happening in Ukraine. Horrible thing, but we'll see what happens with this. There is also this tremendous coming together of the rest of the world that perhaps we all can be connected again. Horrible, now almost close to 1 million deaths in the United States and over 5 million worldwide, the coronavirus. And yet the coronavirus epidemic brought many, many people together. Many people together. People really backed each other up. There was a tremendous effort, whether you believe in the immunization force or not, we immunized 4 billion people. That's an astonishing thing that we did. And people kind of came together. So belief is one thing, process is another. And the idea that I always like to say with process is, does it bring people together? My particular spiritual practice is that if it brings me together with others, it's a good practice. If it doesn't, it's a waste of time, or maybe not necessarily a waste of time, but certainly not as valuable as things that come together. So yeah. Thanks. Did I help you with that? Thanks. Anyone else have any other questions or comments about this? Yes. Yes, yes. Yeah, yeah, right. Thank you. Yeah. The comment was that of the idea about superstitions is other people have superstitions. You have beliefs, but they have superstitions. Uh, Often that's kind of how we go with that, right? If our tribe doesn't have anything superstitious. Now, your tribe, yeah, you guys are really nuts to do that kind of thing. Yeah, that kind of a thing. So often we kind of use that as a derogatory term, but we often kind of look at, we should also realize that many of the things that we believe are things that people might think are superstitious. So yeah. So it can be a dividing word sometimes, but it could also just be a wake up, say, let's just take a look at this a little bit deeper, see how this goes. As I said before, we all kind of need ideas, and we all need our curiosity has brought us so that we can see things in a different way. And sometimes we can't see the whole picture, so we fill it in, and it looks like a superstitious. So the idea, for example, that we're all in this kind of thing together, but why is that? If we make it something like a series of gods that say so, or if we make it that there is a situation where that there's a force of nature that does it, well, we'll kind of change everything as opposed to just letting it say, this is it. This is part of if you really want to be, down to it, this is part of our DNA. Interesting, isn't it? Our DNA is sent to connect, and yet we don't always connect. So any other kind of questions or comments tonight? So I don't know. Oh yes, how do we manifest connection? There's a whole bunch of external stuff, laws and culture, and those people who are Jungian, you might think of collective consciousness, really a wonderful concept. But internally, we do contemplation and meditation, and these are kinds of ways that we can kind of feel that we might need to connect. So I'd like to give us a practice tonight. And even if you haven't done a lot of meditation, this is a Buddhist practice. Actually, I shouldn't even say that. This is a practice that predates the Buddha. There have been, maybe 3,000 years ago, which was 400 or 500 years before the Buddha died, before the Buddha lived, they've been able to find old scriptures that had this stuff in it. But the Buddhists glommed onto it. Cultural appropriation. How about that? Even way back when. And it's a very deep and wonderful practice to kind of do. So loving kindness practice, it's also called metta, is this practice of feeling a connection to things. Now, in your handout, you can look at it. There's kind of what I like to call a Build-A-Bear way of doing loving kindness. I am going to give you phrases, but the phrases are all related to those things: kindness, physical health, safety, and mental health. Those are the 4 phrases that we use. And again, if you look at somebody, Sharon Salzberg is an author who does a lot of these sorts of things. So if you're kind of interested in that loving kindness from her, then you can kind of go with that way. So the traditional practice, and I'll give you the traditional practice, and you can certainly modify that however you like, would be to have 4 phrases and 5 people. It's a nice grid. Those people who are a little bit kind of OCD-ish are really liking this already, I can tell. So 4 phrases, 5 people. Although, like I say, in other words, The four phrases are, again, are one for kindness, one for physical health, one for safety, which actually happened quite a bit, and one for mental health. And I have a bunch of examples in the handout, mostly from Sharon Salzberg's work. So I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to use the four phrases that I learned with Jack Kornfield. And Jack Kornfield is a teacher in the Vipassana tradition, part of the Insight meditation in Massachusetts, which has been really, it's very interesting because they had this tradition in India, came to the United States and kind of did it however they wanted to do it. Or as Jack Kornfield, and I think might have been Sharon Salzberg, said together, the reason they could do what they did is they had no adult supervision. They just kind of did it. And this is real American Buddhism. Just as an aside, I mean, just relating to Buddhism in general, one of the things that Buddhism has done over the years is wherever it landed, it adopted some of the culture. What it has adopted in the United States, and maybe the West, maybe the West in general, is the idea there's a whole lot of ways to do this. And we don't have to be stuck with one thing. In many of the Eastern cultures, it's like, you do it this way, my way or the highway. You're never going to get anywhere unless you do it just like I say. And, you know, Americans and Western Europeans are just like, no, that's not right. We're just going to figure it out. So this is it. And again, once again, this is a tool. So the four phrases that Jack Kornfield uses are, may I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. That's a good one for physical health. May I be peaceful and at ease. Now that's an interesting phrase. Why is he using that for a safety phrase? That's a safety phrase. The idea is that, you know, usually, often, especially in olden times, when people really did not know that there wouldn't be warring Huns coming down the pike, they talked about, may I be free from danger, may I be protected. But Jack Kornfield, this idea, may I be peaceful and at ease, is one of those things that says, if you are peaceful and at ease, you're safe. Because let's face it, at least in modern society, most of our feeling of non-safety comes from us. We're not peaceful, we're agitated, we're worried, we're fearful, we're checking our feeds on our phone, and we're just sure that there's danger right around the corner, always. There's always something to be fearful about, and not at ease, of course, at all. So that's an interesting phrase. And the fourth phrase is to be well. So I'll go through these with you all. I will recite them as we're doing this. There are the five people that I like to call the loving kindness posse. This is your posse. The first one is yourself. And that makes sense. You know, that's the old masks falling from the ceiling in the airplane, right? You know, put on your own mask first before you can help anybody else. So you start with those four phrases for yourself. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. The second person we give to is a benefactor or a teacher. May he or she or they be filled with loving kindness. May they be well. May they be peaceful and at ease. May they be happy. Or you may say that to them directly. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. And you can have a large roster of this. I have my favorite, I like to think of my favorite 7th grade teacher who gave me my first Dharma talk. Didn't know it was a Dharma talk, but it was. And he's a Franciscan monk. And he said things that were much wiser than many other people who I saw around me. And, you know, being a staunch Roman Catholic, thinking about maybe being in the priesthood sounded really cool. Didn't realize maybe he didn't know either, that it was getting me ready for another path. But, you know, high school teachers, coaches, people who taught you musical instruments, somebody who taught you how to whip up a good batch of cupcakes, whatever. They're all good. There's so many teachers and benefactors. Someone who gave you a loan, somebody who, like when you were down and out and you needed a couch to crash on for a week, they did that for you. Those benefactors, really important. The third person is the person that is considered to be close to us, somebody that we would call a friend. And the idea would be that they're pretty easy to connect with, right? You really like your friend, and again, your roster can get up and down with this. May they be filled with loving kindness. May they be well. May they be peaceful. May they be at ease. The fourth one is the most powerful. I'm going to skip to the fifth because I want to get back to the fourth because I think it's the most powerful. The fifth is actually what's called your difficult person. In a lot of terms, it's called your enemy. It's that person that really, really irritates you, really pushes your buttons. I mean, there's no reason for them to do that. Why did they do that? That kind of thing. And the interesting thing about that is that they are human beings. They have this spark of divinity in them, even if it seems that they don't. So hopefully we can touch that. And that actually is sometimes a little hard for people. We're just jumping right into this, and I don't have a long time to develop this with you, but it's the one that's fifth. And sometimes people need to practice with the other 3 or 4 before they get to that. Maybe do loving kindness for a month or 2 before they do that. So, but just be aware that that's on the list. The fourth is really interesting. It's the neutral person. The neutral person is a person who is, them, but they're not really very, not very strongly attracted to them or repelled by them. They're just kind of around. Next door neighbor, barista at your coffee shop, stuff like that. So my story about this is when I was learning this from a Jack Kornfield tape, he mentioned a couple of categories that you might find that might be like people in this category as neutral person. And I don't know why it struck me as really a good thing to do. He said grocery store clerks. Sure, grocery store clerks. They're just fine. They're not dramatic, that kind of thing. They're like, paper or plastic, how you doing? You find everything, yeah. 30-second conversation, you're gone. Not unpleasant, not earth-shatteringly pleasant either, right in the middle there. So at that time, I had a nice corner grocery store that was 2 blocks away from me. And for whatever reason, they seemed to have a really stable cadre of grocery store clerks. So they were, so you could get a lot of turnover sometimes in that industry, but they got that. Well, after about a month of doing grocery store clerks as my loving kindness practice, I am now left with an unbelievably warm feeling for grocery store clerks. If a grocery store clerk runs for president, they'll get my vote. I don't care what else is going on with them. That sort of thing. But that's where the problem is. That's really where the problem is. It's actually not even the difficult person. You connect with the difficult person. You're really connected with the difficult person. They're pushing your buttons. You're pushing their buttons. You're in friction. That's easy to see. But it's the bunch of people that are kind of like, they're just kind of out there that we don't really kind of connect with. And if we can learn to connect with the neutral person, we can make a huge difference to the whole world. And that's kind of where it starts. Not with the people that we see who are enemies, but the people who just kind of fade into the background. There they are. And that's kind of what this practice is. That's probably one of the most important parts of this practice. So Any questions about that? I'm not going to spend a long time with this tonight, but I want to go through maybe 5 or 10 minutes of just doing the practice. Any questions about this? All right. So I don't know if you like to do whatever you do with kind of meditation, if you can kind of be whatever kind of comfort you are with. Now, I will tell you that I do this with the breath, but I follow my breath when I brush my teeth. So, I'm just I've kind of been ingrained by 32 and a half years of meditation that I just do the breath all the time. But if you don't do the breath, it's okay. I mean, it still works just using the individual phrases. So I go, may I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. So we'll start with a bell and end with the bell. So sitting kind of upright, solid, really enjoying this precious human birth. We say these 4 phrases for ourselves. Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, guess what? That means you're supposed to love yourself. So, may I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. And now, dear friends, let's bring our attention to a benefactor, someone who has helped us, made our life a little bit easier by imparting comfort, care, or knowledge. Whatever that is. So many have touched us in our lives like this. So many have given us the connection of what they know and what they can provide. To our teacher, our benefactor, we say these phrases. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. And now to our good friend, someone who we connect with easily, who has been able to give their comfort and ease. Something about it. It flows very easily. We almost wish it would flow that easily with everyone. But with great gratitude that we have people like this. To our friend, we say, may you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. And now to that neutral person, that person that is in our sphere, but not particularly moving one way or another. An employee at work, your coffee shop barista, a next door neighbor, a grocery store clerk, a distant cousin. They're okay. Nothing wrong with them. They don't stir you one way or another. But we do know this, that they have this great spark of divinity that all human beings carry. So we say to them, may you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. And finally, and perhaps this is something you can build up to if you're not willing to do it tonight. It's perfectly understandable. To bring into your mind that difficult person, that person who caused us suffering. And we're not sure why, but yet there was friction there. There was difficulty. It seemed so unnecessary. It seemed perhaps cruel. But that person, in a very real sense, is part of your tribe. And perhaps we can touch what is good in that person with these phrases. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourselves arriving at your own door, in your own mirror. And each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. That's a poem by a person by the name of Derek Walcott. I am reliably assured by people who read a lot of poetry that this is clearly the shortest poem he ever wrote. You like to go on and on. The idea, however, is in all of this is if we wish to connect, we must befriend ourselves. So that's just one of the ways in which this all kinds of comes about. There are really good reasons why we don't do so well with ourselves, and we're going to talk about that mostly tomorrow afternoon. But I really want to get the idea that everybody is so worthy. You know, I mean, it's when I come into a room like this, and like I say, I don't know most of you, I just am kind of amazed. Here it is, all you human beings, all your people here working hard to be mindful, spiritual, to be on that kind. It really makes my heart lighter, and you're really worthy of it. So well, hopefully we can inspire you with that. Oh yes, I almost forgot about this. This is such a wonderful quote. I love quotes by people who you don't expect. A human being is part of the whole, called by us the universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to a few personal desires and to the affection for a few persons nearest us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circles of compassion, to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. That's what this loving kindness practice is. As you notice, it's a circle. Start with yourself, then your benefactor, then your friends, then neutral people. Embrace all of humanity with it. And it's really interesting that Albert Einstein, of all people, came up with that. So to get the idea that we all can do that, and that the problem of restricting ourselves to personal desires and affections for a few persons nearest to us is tribal. And hopefully we can kind of break out of that. Here are some reference for you. And my first Dharma door that I'm going to give you out of the 5 is connect. Connect however you can. Connect with people, connect with nature, but connect. Maybe talk to that relative that you haven't really talked to for a couple of years. I don't know, things just kind of drifted off. You know, join sewing circles and book clubs and, you know, dance teams and whatever. Connect with people on all levels, especially if you get a chance to connect with people who aren't exactly like you. So one of my favorite stories about connection like that is about 10 years ago, I think it was about that long now. Some people in Massachusetts did an experiment. They got, I think it was 10 women, I maybe get the wrong, on each side. 10 women who are on different sides of the issue relating to abortion. And every month they got together and they had discussions. And usually it was over like food or something, but they did this. And after a year, no one changed their mind. Everybody had the same opinions. They all got so invested in each other's lives. They would end up showing up for their kids' graduations. They would end up, you know, being invited, going to, you know, baseball games together, you know, really being involved with it. That, you know, our beliefs can be barriers, but maybe not if we really can see the humanity in all those sorts of people. So figure out what works best for you to connect. And there's a few resources. Sapiens, really wonderful, wonderful book about how we all came to be here. The other 3 are also good too. Behave by Robert Sapolsky is about 900 pages, but he's really kind of worth it. He's the quirkiest of the four people up there. He's really fun to watch if you ever see him. He's very opinionated. He's short and has a gigantic beard. So anyway, any questions or comments about the loving kindness practice, about anything? Yes. Yes. Oh, they're on your handout. Yes. Right. So yeah, you don't have to start scribbling down everything. Right. So they'll be in this handout here. Yeah. Mhm. Anyone else? Did people feel moved by the loving kindness, or was just like, eh? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. So yes, thank you. And I'll try to continue to keep my voice up as things go on. I'll work on that. So the comment was about how the idea about loving kindness and being able to extend it, that people who often do, and there's no question about that, people that do violence in the world have not had that experience of loving kindness from others. And that also, and we will certainly can talk about that, or the idea about what we would call this lifespan and what goes on beyond. For sure, we can talk about that. Yeah. So thank you. Yes. Do you have a question too? No. Oh. Anyone else? Yes. Correct. Yes. Yes. So what you're talking about is, let me just phrase, I think Sapolsky might have been the person that said this. It was, I don't remember who said it, but I often quote it. I should really find out who said it if I'm often quoting it, shouldn't I? That we are living in the 21st century with the caveman brain. And we are actually in a situation where what was useful once is now destructive. But as we've said before, we have to do, or don't have to, everybody is better off if we cannot have that initial reaction. We're going to talk a lot about this tomorrow afternoon. We're going to get into emotional regulation. We don't have to follow that initial action. We can drop back and see what's going on. And, this, and tomorrow night, we'll talk about beliefs a little bit and how it can be that way. Everything that we're talking about, or pretty much everything we're talking about, there are some things that might be a little bit mysterious, can all be explained by potentially just organic stuff. This thing fires, that thing fires, that's all it is. But it also can be explained by that there is something beyond that as well. And we don't really know. That's the whole idea behind uncertainty with this sort of thing. So but we do know whether the cause is a larger spiritual thing going for generations or something else, or just in the here and now. We are better off if we connect. We are better off if people see each other as brother, sister's friend, rather than enemies. Where this is clear. And it is because we have this brain that says, you're not in my tribe. You're evil or stupid. How about that for now? Anybody, does it sound like anything that you might hear in, say, American politics? You're evil and stupid. I mean, those are the two things that come up to people when they don't agree with them. You're evil and stupid. It's not that you're misguided. It's not that you've got a different problem. You're evil and stupid. That's your tribal nature coming about. You can, if we can all learn to if we can be like the women from Massachusetts, say, yeah, we're not going to agree on this, but we can have a friendship in some way. You can connect. Here's an interesting piece of statistics. So one of the really weird things about you, there's so many weird things. Tomorrow morning, we'll talk about a lot of weird things that go on in the human body. But one of the weird things is that every cell in our body has 6 feet of DNA. 6 feet of DNA in a little cell, you know, and that's fingertip to fingertip here. Boom, 6 feet. That's a lot of DNA, and it's all each individual cell, and it's wrapped up really, 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 really tight. Since we've got tennis balls on, this will be easy on a thing. Somebody said it's the equivalent of taking 6 miles of thread and cramming it into a tennis ball. Nevertheless, but what's the difference between you and everybody else? It's about half of a fingernail width. Human beings compared to other human beings are 99.8% congruent. All that stuff you see on like CSI and stuff where they do the DNA and they find out that, oh, this person's the killer and stuff, that's all that little 2%. That's all that half a fingernail. Those are the differences. But you are much, much, much more alike than you are different. And I mean, way more alike than different. And so when we can kind of get with that, perhaps we can say, oh yeah, that's me. That's kind of how that is. So, yeah. Any other questions or comments tonight? Well, thank you all for your time and your attention. Very optional tomorrow morning. Ladies, let me see a show of hands. I'm going to come around and do meditation tomorrow at 7. Is it a time that people would like to hear some meditation instruction? Can I see a show of hands for that? Terrific. Because we as teachers clearly wish to instill people with our own prejudices, and this is an opportunity to do that. So I'm very happy to be able to teach meditation tomorrow morning. And again, those of you who want to sleep in, not a big deal. But we'll be here at 7 tomorrow morning to do a little meditation. 8 o'clock is breakfast, and 9:30 is our talk about how the nervous system actually works. Wow, if it does. So, thank you all. Sleep well.